The Pediatric Lounge, a podcast taking you behind the door of the physician's lounge to get a deeper insight into just what docs are talking about today. From the clinically profound to the wonderfully routine and everything in between. This episode is sponsored by our friends over at Hippo Education. Quick question. When was the last time you felt you were fully up to speed on the non-stop updates in pediatrics? Let me guess. Never. That's where Hippo Education's Pediatrics Reviews and Perspectives podcast comes in. Your monthly pediatric cheat code. Fresh, up-to-date insights from pediatric clinicians who live and breathe the same challenges you do. No fluff, no boring lectures, just practical knowledge you can apply on your next shift. The best part, you can listen and earn CME whenever it works for you on your commute between patients or during that rare quiet moment. So, if you're ready to make staying informed easier, check the link in the description or visit hippoeducation.com to try Hippo Education today. Good morning, George. It's Tuesday morning. We have a phenomenal guest this week, as we usually do, and my bags are packed. I'm going to Nicholas Children's CME event again.
In Florida, Miami.
Yes. Are you coming this year?
I'm not coming. I'm going to Florida next week afterwards.
Yeah. Wow. I wasn't invited to that one.
And the children, you know?
The children?
Why the space? Yeah. Anyway, so today we have Dr. John Allen, and the topic for discussion is going to be the heartbeat of the practice, culture, continuity, and change. Take it away.
Dr. Allen has been in practice for 40 years. He opened his first solo office in Augusta, Georgia in January 1985. He then moved across the Savannah River to open North Augusta Pediatrics in 2006. Dr. Allen and his wife, Kathy, have been married for 47 years and have 3 children, Michael, Catherine, and Amanda. They also have 3 grandchildren, Abigail, Emily, and Jonathan. Dr. Allen enjoys fishing, hunting, pickleball, and of course, Georgia Tech football. It's a joy to have you in the podcast. Welcome, Dr. Allen.
Thank you. It's great to be here. I've enjoyed watching y'all and listening to you for a couple of years now.
You believe that we're in a couple of years now?
Yeah, we're almost 3 years in.
Jeez, we have close to 200 episodes, I think.
It's insanity.
All right.
Dr. Allen, why did you become a pediatrician?
Well, it's really interesting. We all get into this in different ways. And I can look back to a single visit to a pediatrician. We didn't go to pediatricians very much when I was a child, but I went for a Boy Scout physical, my brother and I. And there was something about that office, something about the pediatrician, the nurse, the office, everything about it I really liked. And then when I was trying to decide what to do with my life, I enjoyed science. I enjoyed the idea of being my own boss. And I just gravitated to pediatrics. And after 40 years, I can't think of anything else that I would rather have done.
Wow. When you opened your office, what did it look like back then?
I had a very small office. It was about 700 square feet, tiny little exam rooms and tiny office for me. We were trying to build something out just brand new because I had a doctor offer me a position to join his practice. And then 2 months before I was supposed to start, he decided not to, which worked out great for me because I was able to start my own practice. So I had 2 employees and we just built from scratch.
So was this straight out of residency that you started?
Straight out of residency.
Wow. And it was Augusta, your hometown?
No, I grew up all over the Southeast. My father was an iron worker. So we would move from job to job about every year, it seemed. And then Rome, Georgia, I grew up in and went to Georgia Tech from there and then came to Augusta.
Oh, and so then you started out all on paper.
I did.
And was that, what, in 85, were mostly cash?
Oh, it was all cash. We collected 96% of what we charged because people paid at the time that they came. It was like $15 for an office visit and everybody paid.
Wow. And not many vaccines. We had TPT and polio.
That's right. It was a very limited number of vaccines.
I think a DTP, polio, MMR. Yeah, that's about it, right?
That's about it. That's right.
You have no Prevnar, no rotavirus, no
No.
varicella, no hepatitis B, no hepatitis A, no
No.
HIV,
No chicken pox.
no chicken pox. Yeah. So I guess that's easy.
Yeah.
And the polio, remember the polio was frozen?
That's
I,
right. Yeah.
it was funny. I didn't even have a refrigerator separate for the vaccines. I just kept the polio in the freezer above the staff refrigerator. And then
Right.
you have to rub that thing like that until it got nice and warm and then put it in the kid's mouth. Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
And
The
the
progress notes were very small, right?
The what? That.
Progress notes were very short.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Yeah.
20 visits on one piece of paper.
Oh, it was amazing. It was ROM a mox was the note.
Yeah.
But you could see 60 patients a day.
Yeah.
And then your accounting system was just a pegboard.
That's the pegboard system. I was very lucky because my mother actually worked for a doctor. So she was able to teach me the pegboard system. And it's an amazing system. And so I learned to do that really, and it balanced everything perfectly.
For people who don't know what a pegboard looks like, it's this big book, and you open it, and there's a big spreadsheet, and that's your ledger. And then you do that a ledger a day. And when the patient came in, you would rip off this little piece of paper, this carbon paper, to give them the receipt. And underneath, you had another card, like an index card, that kept the patient's account. And you write down when they came in, what they paid. And then that went on a filing cabinet, much like we used to, the old libraries, right? You went to the library, you look for a book, you open that box, and you take out and tell you what row in the library that was. It was a very simple but very elegant system. And everything was written in pencil, because if you made a mistake, you needed to erase it and rewrite it. And you didn't use pens for that. You only used pen for the medical records. So
I have a good question for you, too. Does anybody remember what that library system was called?
the Dewey system, wasn't it?
I'm impressed, Dr. Bravo.
Dewey Decimal. I hate the Dewey Decimal System.
Yeah.
Remember, you had to photocopy stuff and take it back. It's like you can take the textbook out of the library, so you photocopy what you need and you went back to read it.
Yeah. It's called progress now.
I don't know.
Yeah, the time you'd spend in the library trying to look things up, going through past articles. Now it's so much easier. I was actually thinking about this yesterday, how much easier it is now to find the information we need if we don't know the answer to something.
Yep.
I don't know that anybody buys textbooks anymore.
No.
Don't. The kids don't. I have the medical students and nobody owns the text. I don't know what Grey's Anatomy is doing or the physiology book.
No.
They just they look good on the shelf.
That's right.
Yeah, but I don't think anybody buys them. By the time they
So you don't, they buy UWorld. They buy UWorld, which is basically, if we had this when we did the USMLE, it was spectacular. Basically, there's a question and then it'll explain the answers to you, why you got it right, why you got it wrong. It's like fantastic. You don't need anything else besides UWorld. If you memorize UWorld, you'll pass your USMLE.
And then the other thing is the red book. Remember the red book? You couldn't live without a red book.
That's right.
Now I just go to the CDC website and I look up stuff like when I have a patient traveling to Africa and they need malaria prophylaxis, I just type in CDC malaria prophylaxis and it tells me what drug to do and which one is not being sold right now and which one can be used in women, which one can't be used in women. And then I just type it into the computer.
Yeah.
A whole different world.
Years back then, opening an office was, I don't want to say easy because it probably wasn't easy. It was risky, but you can throw out your shingle and probably people would come.
That's right. And if you market yourself, it was a lot easier then. We didn't have near as much oversight. We weren't filing insurance. We didn't have to sign up with all these insurance companies. It was a lot easier. We didn't have Hippo. We didn't have Clio. We didn't have so many of these things that we have now. So what's easier like that? Now it was harder in other ways because we had so much more infectious disease that could die in our office when they walked in the door. And we were attending C-sections and resuscitating babies and doing spinal taps. So in some ways it was harder, in some ways it's easier.
Yeah.
I was telling George, in Northern Virginia, there are several hospitals. I'm not going to name the hospital this time because I like them. They have a children's hospital within a big health system. And the last 2 spinal taps in the ER, they haven't been able to do them. One was a kid less than 6 weeks. They botched it up. They got contaminated. Then they called the patient back, admitted him. Then the ID person said, no, that was just contamination, sent them out. What a nightmare. And then the other one was influenza encephalitis, a teen. They gave her ketamine, sedated her, tried twice. They couldn't do the spinal tap at the children's hospital. We used to be able to do spinal taps asleep.
Now, why was that, do you think?
Because we did them every day you were on call. It's just like anybody under 9 months with a fever got a spinal tap.
It wasn't that far up. It was 3 months.
No. When I started, if you were under 9 months, you did not get nuchal rigidity. And you came into the ER with 103 fever, and everybody's probably roseola. You're going to send them home? Not without a spinal tap. What if it's meningitis? He'll be dead by the morning. And you stuck that needle in that baby. And that was just like routine. Just routine. It was just like drawing blood. It was just
My second office was right next to an emergency room. And I would see the patient in the office and I'd say, go over to the emergency room. And once they got him set up, I'd run over there, do the spinal tap, and then come back to the office and continue seeing patients.
yeah. It was Hib and pneumococcal were real devastating diseases. And they didn't forgive. If you made a mistake, you had minutes. You didn't have days.
And if you had an epiglottitis come in your office, that was probably the scariest thing to come in.
Yeah. And remember how many soft x-rays of the neck we did? Every
Yeah.
trooper got a soft neck and looking for the steeple sign or the thumb sign. And I can't remember the last time I got a soft neck tissue now. It was like everybody.
It's just still learning these things on their boards on the USMLE. I guess they're more historical things that, God forbid, that patient does knock on your door. You should be able at least to smell it.
And they
Yes.
wouldn't be able to. I'm sorry, they wouldn't be able to.
Yeah.
Did you guys take PALS? The Pediatric Advanced Life Support?
I did not. I did not keep up to date on that.
Because PALS had a video. And one of their slide sets of a kid with supraglottitis or epiglottitis. And the kid tripods and you can see him turning blue. And they waited till the very last minute to intervene so they could capture that on tape to show people. And I was a PALS director, so I taught that all over the state. And every time I looked at that thing, I was like, that is so unethical. But it was recorded like in the 60s or 70s. And it was a teaching tool. That's all we had back then. Now with this technology, it's amazing.
There's technology, there's simulations, there's mannequins, there's a whole lot of stuff that the students use.
So what does your office look like now, Dr. Allen?
I'm in my fourth office now. And now, or is it my fifth? It may be even my fifth, but it's a 13,000 square foot office now that we built in 2018. So we have 24 exam rooms and 13 providers.
Wow. And you're open Monday through Friday, right?
That's right. We're open some on the weekends as well. On Saturdays and Sundays, we share call with another group in town. And some weekends we work and some weekends they work.
Okay.
I mean, there's enough to be on call. It's 13, 14 providers, you said?
That's right.
That's a no call.
Yeah, that's right. Compared to what it used to be,
Oh, yeah.
it's
Yeah.
a lot easier. And there's not as much infectious disease anymore. We don't
Sure.
get nearly as many calls as we did
Yeah.
in the past. As a matter of fact, that's one of the big changes for us. A year after I went into practice, we opened an after hours urgent care combination of private practices here in town. And that thing was very busy for many years. But then after we started all the vaccines, illness slowed down. And finally we had to close it because there wasn't enough illness to keep this after hours office open.
That is true.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. And then, so it's very big. And I saw a picture on your website, and you're the only male.
That's right. That is a problem. I'm looking for males to come to work.
I was like, he must have the highest EQ of anybody I've ever met, because there's not a single person but him that is a male.
Minority.
He's
Literally a minority.
he's like a super minority.
That's right.
How's it? I remember when I started, pediatrics was still probably 2 men for every woman. There was And I started my residency in 89, but there was already a lot of women going into pediatrics, but now it's all women.
Yes, looks like it is.
It's hard to find a male pediatrician that doesn't have gray hair. And how's that changed how the patients perceive us and how you have to manage?
I'm not sure how it changes the way they perceive us, but I had a parent recently talk about how their son really would like to be seeing a male doctor or a male provider. And I'm thinking all these women for all these years had to see all these male providers instead of a female provider. So now it's on the other foot. That males are going to have to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think you must have to change your management style?
In what way?
Running the office I think when you have an all female, like clinician staff, support staff, it must be different than when you have 50-50 male, 50% female.
I'm not sure if there's a big difference in that. The people that I have here working really hard and taking good care of the patients, but they also have their families that they're taking care of as well. So that does impact it a little bit. For me, I was blessed. I had a wife at home that if one of my children was sick, then my wife was taking care of that child and I could just come on to work. Well, the people that work with me here, they've got to take care of their children and their work. So that makes it a little bit harder for them.
Yeah. Yeah. I was telling George, some of the practices here in Northern Virginia, they follow the school guidance on snow and it being open and closed. And I asked one of the managing partners, Michelle Riley, I said, Michelle, but if it's only 2 inches of snow, why do you close the office? And then she just laughed and she said, I have one pediatrician, Louis Gold, who's male. Everybody else is a female. The school closes, they don't have daycare for their kids. Half my staff doesn't show up. I can't run the office. And so we follow the school. If the school says it's a snow day, then we close the office because we know we're not going to be able to get staff in to take care of the kids. So it's different.
And
Oh, no, telemedicine from home.
Yeah, but this was 15 years ago that we had this conversation. So telemedicine was not allowed.
Yeah.
And Dr. Allen, you guys doing much telemedicine?
We do not. During COVID, we started doing some of it, but frankly, I didn't enjoy it. I did not like the long distance interaction. I would certainly rather have them here in the office and see them in the office. So we have not continued doing that.
Yeah. I can attest that a lot of the younger parents, they do like this telemedicine for little things. And the truth of the matter is, these are the things that we used to deal with on the phone that were more of an inconvenience and a nuisance for free.
Yes.
Now you look at them, you talk to them, you engage a little bit, do a little visit. At least you did the right medicine. You didn't do anything bad. You satisfied their needs, you resolved their problem, and you sent the bill.
Yep.
What's wrong with that?
Yeah,
Let's do it all day long. It's terribly boring. But
I haven't figured out how to ease it into the schedule and make it work without them waiting at home on their camera, waiting to hear from us.
yeah, probably the best way to implement it is just put it into the schedule of the physician. Just put it in. If they want a telemedicine for med renewal for Ritalin or have a rash or something that's not too complicated, put it in as a regular office visit. Same amount of time that you would with a sick visit.
And I probably needed to start doing that because as we have filled up this new office, we're out of space and that would make it easier to see more patients.
Yes, it would. And it'll increase your bottom line.
Yeah.
Dr. Allen, how important is culture to you and your organization?
It's really important. It took me several years to get to the point that I could understand exactly what I wanted to get across to my staff regarding seeing patients. And then probably 20 years into doing this, I sat them down one day and said, here are the important things for running our business. These are the things that we are going to focus on with every question that we have. And the first thing was, of course, quality medical care. Nothing else compares to that. Quality medical care is the most important thing. It overrides everything else. And then the second thing was going to be compassion, that we have to have compassion for our patients. We have to understand what they're going through in their lives. how they're struggling through things themselves, how they need their child's care taken care of, and what we can do to fix that. So that if somebody shows up late for an appointment, we treat them kindly. We treat them with kindness and patience. We don't get upset with them because they show up on a day when they don't have an appointment. We treat them with compassion because we don't know what's going on in their lives. And then the third thing was going to be business success. We all have to have a business success or we don't have a job. So I sat my providers down one time and said, here are the things that are important. And I gave them those three things and then said, it's not about our feelings. It's not about if we're irritated that somebody's showing up. It's not about we've got to get out of the office quickly. It's about these three things all the time. It's about quality medical care, compassion, and business success. And if we can focus on those things, we're going to have a successful business and we're going to enjoy our lives and we're going to enjoy our work and we're going to take care of kids. We're going to save lives and relieve suffering and prevent disease every day.
Well, Herb, that goes back to that statement that I always say, do good quality medicine and the money will follow. If you follow only the money first, you'll never do good quality medicine. Unfortunately, what's happening these days is all these MBA suits that work for organizations and hospitals, they just follow the spreadsheet money and they don't care about the quality. Now, I'm curious, how did you communicate this? Because a lot of the doctors, especially the employed guys, they seem to think I'm a clock puncher. I want to leave at 6:00 and Mrs. Jones showed up at 5:45. Now I'm going to be late. I can't pick up my kid and the list will go on and on. Or patient shows up late and they start carrying on. It's going to mess up my whole day. The sky is falling kind of mentality. How do you deal with that?
But I had to get across to them that if that's the most important thing to them in terms of this work, then this may not be the right place for them. That in our office, those three things, it's going to be quality medical care, compassion, and business success, always. And if they can't live within that framework, then they may not need to be here because that is what we do. The feelings and the outside goals are not it. But recently I had an epiphany. We've got a lot of people who work here. We've got about 45 employees and people come and go. Young people come in, the regular staff, not the providers, not the other people. They come in and then it may be their first job. And then they move on to something else later on. But this epiphany I had was, I want them to have a great life. I want everybody that I'm in contact with to have a great life. And that may not mean working here for the rest of their lives. So at our last staff meeting last month, I went through the three main things and then I added a fourth thing. And I wrote the word you on the board. And I said, this is important as well. I want you to have a great life. That means that I want you to have a great life here. I want you to have a great life when you move on somewhere else. Here, I want you to do these three things up here at the top, but I want you to enjoy your work. I want you to improve your skills so that you can become the best person that you can be and have the best life that you can have. And so I wanted everybody to have that. And I think they appreciated that.
I guess that's called a quadruple aim in the MBA school.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think especially so I disagree with George. I don't think quality matters in U.S. medicine right now. Yeah,
Yeah, you could try.
there's behemoths like behemoth hospitals or behemoth insurance companies that are gaming the system, and it's all for profit. And like United Healthcare making up diagnoses on the Medicare Advantage side to make billions. People with diabetes, they put in the computer that they have diabetic cataracts, and they've had their cataracts removed 3 years ago. But then they get more per month per member, and they pocket that for their executives. That's not quality. Making up stuff on the charts, reporting your BMI when you're not actually reporting the BMI, but you're just defaulting to normal BMIs just because there's a quality incentive program that says if you reach 85% reporting on every physical, you get these many pennies. That's not quality. That's not improving the compassion you take your care with your patient. That's not making you happier as a physician. So the incentives are skewed.
And data collection. And unfortunately, whether we like it or not, Data has become the new currency in medicine.
That's not data collection, George.
Yes, it is.
That's the incentives.
Election to
You shouldn't measure things. You shouldn't measure things which you don't intend to take action on. So I'm okay in measuring BMIs if our intent is to improve the rate of overweight or obese children that we have in our practice. But just reporting a number so that the Medicaid managed care program can get more money out of the state and give us pennies in return in the quality improvement programs, that's
Right.
equality. And I had a question for you, Dr. Allen. You talk about compassion, and it's an interesting word in that I was telling George I was at a meeting in Detroit on type 1 diabetes, and they had the pediatric endos and the pediatricians, and we were talking about the journey of the kids with type 1. And when they become insulin dependent, many of us, if we're lucky enough to have diabetic clinics, we just send the kids there. They get better care. We don't do it that often. And then they had that on a board, and you put a sticky, and who takes care of the type 1, stage 3, needing insulin? And of course, everybody says the pediatric endocrinologist. And then I put my sticky on that same board, and I said, I comfort, because that mama will come back to my office, and I may not be managing the CGM or the insulin pump or have the diabetic educator, but I'll put my arm around her and say, you got this. And my job in that role changes from writing prescriptions to just listening. But it doesn't end. And I think that's one piece of US based medicine that's lacking. My job doesn't end because you have a specialist. Now I'm here to comfort you and to sometimes translate what the big system's trying to tell you that you need to do for your kid, because it's complicated. And that's why I went to medical school.
Yeah. That's old school mentality, which is pretty good, I think. We're the doctor. We're the central guy, central person for these patients. And the systems, they don't quite see the patient as a patient, I guess. I had a call last night, 1 o'clock in the morning. The kid has got her Ozempic shot, and she's having a reaction to it.
Is she throwing up?
Just
Throwing up?
nauseous and
Yeah.
so forth and so on. So you should call the endocrinologist who prescribed it to you, because we don't prescribe it. She tried to say one of the doctors in the office did, but they didn't. And you know what the answer was? I did call a couple times and nobody called me back.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm calling you. Wake you up, Dr. Root, at 1 o'clock in the morning. Couldn't sleep after that.
And so the interesting is when you say compassion, it seems to me you're talking about compassion towards the parents, the patients. Do you also exercise compassion towards yourself and your staff, your team?
Oh, absolutely. I want my team to understand that I want their lives to be good. I have compassion for them when they have to be out for whatever they have to be out for family issues. It's really important that bosses be kind and patient and understanding. And my staff will never hear me yell or scream or throw a fit. Maybe one time in 40 years, I've done something like that. But a good example happened just yesterday. We had a mom who was very abusive to my staff, and she was giving them a really hard time. She came in a little bit later, brought her child in and was seen, and she wanted to talk to our nursing supervisor. So she talked to the nursing supervisor, and I had already written a letter asking her to leave our practice. And the nursing supervisor then talked to my practice administrator and told her, I sat and talked with her, and she's got so many bad things going on in her life. And she's just so frustrated with life. And so my nursing supervisor had bought into the idea of compassion. Even though this woman had been rude to our staff, she bought into the idea of compassion. So she actually taught me something, because I was ready to dismiss them, but her input into it changed my mind.
Wow. Well, yeah, that's very nice. It's because those patients are very difficult and they really disrupt the rest of the day. for
And
everybody to
that's,
get back to center and keep doing the work you need to do. It's hard.
it is. And so many of these people do struggle with mental illness, or they struggle with an abusive spouse, or life is just falling apart for them. And yeah, we have to show them that compassion.
Yeah. And especially, I struggle taking care of children with autism because I just can't wrap my head around how do I diagnose it with confidence. You kind of said he can't talk. He doesn't make eye contact. He must be autistic. Okay, that's a good theory, but can you prove it? No. And then it's a chronic condition that the outcome is absolutely unpredictable. And it's day in and day out, and you got no answers for these parents. And I think that's very draining for them.
Could you imagine how their life is?
No, that's why I
They
said,
deal with it for 15 minutes, 20 minutes.
yeah.
They got to deal with this 24/7.
And the unknowns, will the kid be able to get through high school? Will he be able to have a job? Will he be able to live independently or not? And there's no predictive models. We don't know. Maybe yes, maybe not. What will happen when I'm not able to take care of them? And it's very hard. But on the other hand, sometimes they take that frustration, that anger, and they turn it against you. And if I had a wand or a shot or a pill that would make your kid better today, I would. And
Yeah, they have to deal with it every day. And it's one of the things that has changed over the years too, is the ability to take care of patients like that. Because when I first went into practice, I wouldn't have dreamed of using antipsychotics. And now I use them all the time for patients, especially autistic patients who are aggressive and difficult to handle. You have to learn to use those things.
yeah. Yeah. Now you also are a big proponent of vitamin D, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Everybody has low vitamin D. I had one kid
Everybody,
that had a normal vitamin D. I couldn't believe
everybody I test is low. You're right.
So who do you test? Everybody, or do you just test people that have certain symptoms?
Just the ones with symptoms. I don't test everybody.
So like depression, anxiety,
That's
obesity,
right.
anyone else you screen?
I don't think so. I think that's about it.
Those three?
Yeah.
Okay. And then do you give them calciferol once a week, or do you promote healthy diet, or how do you get their levels back up?
Promote healthy diet, have them outside. Usually I give them, get their level up with high dose and then keep them on daily doses of vitamin D.
Okay. All right. Yeah, because I just tell people take your vitamin D 2,000 units every day, and if you don't have symptoms, I don't need to test it. But everybody wants to know what their vitamin D level is.
Yeah.
So we are going to take a break here and come back with part 2 of the conversation with Dr. Allen next week after I get back from the Pediatric Postgraduate course at Nicklaus Children's Hospital in Miami. Thank you for listening. This has been a production of the Pediatric Lounge. On the show notes, you will find links to our co-host and other important notes, as well as a timetable of the topics discussed today. Don't forget to follow us on social media and subscribe to wherever you listen to your podcast. Leave us a great review, as it helps us greatly. In the meantime, we will see you next week. The Pediatric Lounge. The conversations are not intended as medical advice, and the opinions expressed are solely those of the host and the guest.